Hi everyone, I wanted to provide an update about my hearing that occurred on July 10th. My name is Rita Wadwani, but first I wanted to thank Christine and Eric Fleming from California Family Law Naked Truth for giving parents like myself a platform to speak about our experiences that are not aligned with the law. Our hearing was scheduled for 8:30 in the morning, and while custody was addressed in my moving papers, I requested a review of minors counsel and how our children and our case of domestic violence has been processed. Minors counsel had threatened my son, and systemically the court and she had erased domestic violence from the record and turned the entire case into enforcements against me and my son. On the day of the hearing, several things happened, and now I believe that they were all legal, strategic gamesmanship. We were set at 8:30 in the morning with a dozen court watchers there, and I was not allowed to present my case until 1:30 in the afternoon. By the afternoon, 70% of our court watchers were quietly removed, and also there was no court reporter. The hearing was recorded, but I can tell you that I still cannot obtain recorded hearing transcripts from even a year ago from Judge Bird's courtroom. Judge Bird had split, further gamesmanship, Judge Bird had split the hearing into two separate hearings. And now I think that he did that because he was trying to keep the issues about minors counsel narrow. But really in the second hearing, the issues which was about custody and therapy, the issues about minors counsel became very exposed there. The hearing, however, I have only been provided, since the two hearings, so the first hearing was a review on minors counsel, and he said she is not to be recused on the basis of safety, and he dismissed it. He declined my request. And the second hearing was regarding custody and therapy. I have received 1 minute order and 1 FOA for the hearing, and it's basically as if the hearing on minors counsel did not happen at all. And I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. This is normally what happened. Happens in Judge Bird's courtroom. There was systemic thwarting of the court watchers. There was a very strategic movement of our case to the afternoon where there was no court reporter. And now the entire review hearing on minors counsel basically didn't occur. There's no minute order, and there's no FOA, and there's no mention of it. And this is the legal gamesmanship that I'm used to with Judge Bird. On the minute order that I have received, domestic violence findings were all removed. All the boundaries, the two findings that the judge gave were that this court takes domestic violence very seriously. That's nowhere on the minute order. It's only about therapy and reunification. And the Judge Bird also said that there has been too much pressure placed on the minor child in the second hearing after the first hearing on minors counsel was already completed, and I think that was strategic. Therapy was capped at 2 sessions per month, but the way they wrote it up, my son now has to go to therapy 6 times a month, mandated by the court, and the whole hearing was about how too much pressure was placed on him inappropriately. I don't even know adults who go to therapy 6 times a month, and it was all due to father's domestic violence. They addressed visitation, and those boundaries were removed. They addressed that not an aggressive step-up plan, and visitation will remain at 1 day a week. That is nowhere in here, and that was mentioned on the April 30th hearing too. Nowhere in the minute or the orders. Judge Bird basically set no return review date, and even very clearly stated that the respondent must file a new RFO for future relief if needed. That's nowhere on here or the orders. And the reason that that's so important to me is because I brought forth domestic violence in July of 2025, but from September to February, Judge Byrd held 17 enforcement hearings against me. It felt like I was being terrorized literally just by him as an individual. And when I presented objections and documentation, he even threatened removal of custody of my sons in one of those hearings that occurred on January 28th. All while domestic violence was erased from the record, all while restraining orders were not being followed and safety and sobriety issues were not being addressed. During those 17 enforcement hearings against me, Judge Byrd even went so far as to realign my entire financial assets to benefit the person who lost the custody due to DV, or lost visitation due to DV. He did that using enforcement hearings and a tool called an elisor, which is a clerk outside the courtroom. And he ordered an elisor to sign in my place for every legal and financial document that I was stating was not lawful. When I refused, he called me difficult and again threatened custody. However, when he ordered those elisors and those documents went to the elisors, even the elisors refused, proving that they were not lawful documents. They refused on the same exact basis that I refused. Then Judge Byrd brought us back to court and added findings absent due process to push the paperwork through when I refused, and even when two elisors refused to sign the paperwork. So for our July 10th hearing, Judge Byrd strategically moved our hearing so that 70% of our court watchers were gone. Then he moved it to the afternoon so the court reporter was gone. And now the entire hearing that was a judicial review on minors counsel is not reflected anywhere. And I think this is what California Family Law Naked Truth is really trying to bring to the surface and expose. This is happening, and it's happening legitimately. And the only thing the minute order really addresses is therapy, and it doesn't even address the therapist requests that therapy be forensic only, and it inaccurately addresses my requests. When I tried to bring this up in court, like, please don't put it cumulatively, the judge actually stopped me and said, "You're a nurse, aren't you? Can't you figure it out?" And I got intimidated and didn't speak up, but this is the result of that. So from July 10th, that's the only thing that made it to the order, and the hearing on the judiciary review hearing on minors counsel conduct never even happened on paper. I have filed another preservation of record, which is, it's called a preservation of true record, which is what I've had to do at least a half a dozen times in our case. It's the only thing I can do is file a declaration to say that's not what happened. And here's the evidence of that. And I provided all of that. But it's not going to change the outcome. So basically, our hearing didn't happen, and nothing that happened at our hearing, the one that they tried to get rid of court watchers, removed all the safety boundaries and other boundaries that were discussed at the hearing and put in place. None of it made it to the orders. I'd like to thank Christine and Eric Fleming from California Family Law Naked Truth. I've been terrified for a long time to speak up about the way things